What if I told you that the greatest war you'll ever fight won't be in the world outside you, but in the battlefield of your own mind? That every fear you feel, every doubt you carry, and every wall standing between you and your destiny was built by your own thoughts? Certainly. Here's an expanded version of the keynote. Everything that has ever been created, every towering skyscraper, every work of art, every global movement, every fortune built from nothing, began first as an idea, a single thought, a mental picture. That is the unseen force behind all visible success, the power of the mind. The mind is not just a passive observer of your reality. It is the master key that unlocks or seals the doors to every possibility you will ever face. And yet, most people walk through life unaware that they are holding this key in their pocket, using it to lock themselves out of their own destiny. Let me give you an example. Picture two individuals with identical resources, the same level of education, the same financial status, the same network, even the same childhood struggles. One of them decides to pursue a dream, to build a business, to create art, to write a book. The other thinks of the same dream, feels the same desire, but does nothing. Why? Not because of money, not because of time, but because of belief. One person believed it was possible. The other person believed it was not. That was the only difference. And that difference was born in the mind. The one who believed began to act. Slowly, clumsily perhaps, but they acted. They failed. They got up. They failed again. But the belief in their mind kept them moving. Over time, the world began to respond to that belief. Opportunities opened. People appeared. Progress happened. And eventually, reality mirrored the image that was first formed in thought. Meanwhile, the other individual, equal in ability, equal in potential, was locked in mental chains. Doubt whispered, "Who are you to think you can do that?" Fear reinforced, "What if you fail?" And without ever starting, they disqualified themselves from their own potential. That is the difference the mind makes. The mind is the control tower of your life. It decides what you see, how you interpret events, and how you respond. And the most dangerous part, the mind will obey whatever you repeatedly tell it, without question. If you feed it thoughts of lack, it will see poverty where there is opportunity. If you feed it thoughts of fear, it will perceive threats where there is only growth. But if you feed it belief, vision, and faith, it will begin to turn every challenge into a stepping stone. Let me take it deeper. Imagine a man standing at the edge of a cliff. On the other side lies his dream life, everything he desires. Between him and that dream is a wide gap of uncertainty. Most people see that gap and step back, convinced they will fall. But a rare few look at the same gap and decide to build a bridge. What's the difference? Not the gap, not the tools, not the distance. The only difference is what each person believes about themselves and about what is possible. That belief is formed in the laboratory of the mind. Even in the harshest environments, the human mind has produced miracles. History is filled with individuals who overcame impossible odds simply because they refused to let their minds be ruled by limitation. A man in a prison cell writes books that change nations. A woman with no formal education teaches millions through her voice. A boy born into poverty becomes a world leader. These are not coincidences. They are demonstrations of what happens when the mind is trained to serve vision rather than fear. Every one of us is born with the same engine, the same invisible machinery, but few ever learn to operate it. They allow outside voices, media, family, old failures to write the script inside their head, and then they wonder why their life looks like a story they never wanted to read. The truth is, your mind can be your servant or your saboteur. It can build palaces or prisons. It depends entirely on whether you use it as the master key or leave it rusting in your pocket. Would you like the next keynote expanded in the same tone and length? The most dangerous enemy you will ever face is not out there in the world. It is not the competitor trying to outwork you, not the critic waiting to tear you down, and not the economy shifting beneath your feet. The real enemy is the voice inside your own mind, the one that doubts your worth, questions your ability, and whispers limitations into your every ambition. It is the invisible saboteur that rises every time you try to grow, the one that says you're not good enough, or who do you think you are? It's the internal resistance that fights against every new beginning and makes even the smallest step forward feel like a mountain. You weren't born with this enemy. You were taught it. Maybe not directly. Maybe no one sat you down and told you that you weren't capable, but you absorbed it. From the tone of a teacher who dismissed your ideas, from a parent who compared you to someone else, from the embarrassment you felt when you failed and everyone saw. And slowly, piece by piece, that enemy was built inside you. Not all at once, but in layers, each layer made of emotion, memory, interpretation. It wears 1,000 disguises. Sometimes it shows up as procrastination. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism. Sometimes it hides behind fake confidence or humor. But underneath every one of those masks is the same thing: fear that you are not enough. Let me give you an example that might sound familiar. Imagine someone standing on the edge of a new opportunity, a job interview, a creative project, a business venture, even a relationship. On the outside, nothing is stopping them. They have the skills, the resources, even the time, but they hesitate. They find reasons to delay. They convince themselves they need to prepare more, research more, get more clarity. But the truth is, they're not battling the challenge. They're battling themselves. There's a silent war happening in their mind. One part says go, and another says wait. One part says you can, and another part hisses, what if you fail again? That inner battle is the real enemy, not the job, not the goal, not the world, but the thoughts that create resistance to acting on desire. And what makes the enemy within so difficult to conquer is that it wears your voice. It doesn't sound like a stranger. It sounds like your own reasoning, your own common sense, your own protective instincts. It convinces you that playing small is wise, that aiming low is safe, that staying invisible is intelligent. And because it sounds like you, you trust it. You confuse fear with logic. You mistake avoidance for wisdom, and you call it being realistic. But it's not realism. It's self-sabotage dressed up in rational language. This inner enemy doesn't attack you all at once. It works slowly, like water eroding stone. It takes root in hesitation, grows in doubt, and feeds on your silence. The less you speak your truth, the more it grows. The more you hold back, the louder it gets. And over time, it becomes so familiar that you stop noticing it's even there. You just accept the limits it sets. You avoid the situations it tells you to fear. You live inside the emotional borders it draws, and it starts to feel like that's just who you are. But it's not who you are. It's who you've learned to be under the influence of a false voice you've mistaken for truth. Consider the story of a young woman who dreams of starting a podcast. She has ideas that could help thousands, stories worth telling, and passion in her voice. But every time she sits down to record, that inner voice rises. No one cares what you have to say. You're not a real expert. You'll sound stupid. She deletes every attempt. She hides her ideas. She tells herself, maybe later. Months pass. The equipment gathers dust. Her dream fades not because it was impossible, but because the enemy within convinced her to wait. And in that waiting, the flame that once burned bright dims into a quiet ache. This is how the enemy within operates. It doesn't kill your dream outright. It makes you delay it, postpone it, water it down. It robs you of momentum, of belief, of boldness. It thrives on your silence and survives on your surrender. It does not need to be strong. It only needs you to doubt for just one moment longer, because in that hesitation, in that pause, it wins. Certainly, here's an expanded version of The Power of Autosuggestion. Rich in detail and emotional depth, with a real-world tone and illustrative example, without any concluding sentence. The Power of Autosuggestion. Expanded. Your mind is fertile ground. Whatever seed you plant there, whether it be faith or fear, courage or doubt, vision or limitation, it will take root, grow, and eventually shape the landscape of your life. This is not philosophy. This is law, the law of autosuggestion. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between truth and fiction, possibility and impossibility. It responds only to what it hears most often, especially when repeated with emotion. It absorbs repetition like soil absorbs water, and the words you repeat, the images you dwell on, the beliefs you reinforce, they are not harmless. They are programming, and that programming is either empowering you or enslaving you. You are constantly talking to yourself whether you realize it or not. Every thought you think is a suggestion. Every time you say, I can't handle this, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm always unlucky, you are hypnotizing yourself. You are not describing reality, you are prescribing it, and your subconscious accepts it without argument. It adjusts your behaviors, your expectations, and your emotional reactions to align with that suggestion. It shapes your posture, your tone of voice, even the way you interpret events around you. Tell yourself you are unwanted, and you will begin to see rejection where none exists. Tell yourself you are powerful, and your presence will start to command rooms even before you speak. Let me give you an example. Consider a man preparing for a major career shift. He's stepping into leadership for the first time, leading a team, making decisions that affect others. Every morning he wakes up with tension in his chest. He tells himself, I don't have what it takes. I'm going to mess this up. I've never been a leader. These phrases, though casual and internal, become commands. His subconscious receives them, and the effects manifest subtly. Hesitation in meetings, doubt in his voice, indecisiveness when problems arise. His team senses it. They become uncertain, and the results confirm what his mind feared, so the cycle continues. But imagine instead that this man, knowing the power of suggestion, decides to rewrite the script. He stands in front of the mirror each morning, not just repeating hollow phrases, but feeling them. I am calm under pressure. I lead with clarity. I am growing stronger every day. At first it feels fake. The old doubts fight back, but he persists. Repetition becomes habit, habit becomes belief, and belief alters behavior. His shoulders lift, his tone sharpens. He makes decisions without over-explaining. He begins to embody the role he used to fear, not because the situation changed, but because he changed, and what changed him was the steady drip of suggestion, applied with intention. The mistake most people make is waiting to believe before they speak. They think they must feel confident before saying, I am confident. But that's not how the subconscious works. You speak first, even in disbelief, and your subconscious gradually aligns. You carve new neural pathways by sheer repetition, not by immediate proof. The man who walks around saying, I'm always anxious, is not merely describing his state. He is reinforcing it. The woman who says, I never finish anything is not being honest. She is making it true. And every time those phrases are repeated, they sink deeper until they are no longer thoughts. They are identity. This is why the most successful individuals throughout history, whether knowingly or intuitively, mastered the language they used with themselves. They spoke to themselves with discipline. They used said affirmation not as wishful thinking, but as strategy. They rewired their minds to believe the impossible was possible. And as a result, they achieved what others called luck or genius. In truth, it was the outcome of thousands of small, silent conversations they had with themselves. Conversations no one else heard, but the universe responded to. Certainly, here's the expanded version of wide, burning desire and emotion, delivered in a deep, immersive, and emotionally resonant style, rich with example and without an ending sentence. A noster burning desire and emotion, expanded. Desire, in its purest form, is not just wanting. It is a consuming fire that refuses to be ignored. It is the emotional fuel that powers every great achievement, every breakthrough, every act of defiance against the odds. It does not whisper, it roars. Burning desire is not casual interest. It is not vague wishing. It is not, "I'd like that one day." It is a white-hot obsession that grips the soul and declares, "This must happen. I will not rest until it does." And when that level of emotional intensity is married to a specific goal, it becomes unstoppable. It overrides logic, drowns out fear, and dismantles emotional resistance piece by piece. Too often people try to force themselves into action using willpower alone. They wake up exhausted, dragging themselves through to-do lists, trying to push through mental blocks with brute force. But willpower without emotion is weak. It burns out fast. Emotion is the engine. Emotion gives weight and meaning to a goal. It turns cold ambition into a living vision. Without emotion, the mind has no reason to fight through fear, to endure hardship, or to keep going when the road gets dark. But when emotion is behind a desire, real emotion, not shallow hype, but deep personal significance, then even the heaviest burden becomes light, and even the longest path becomes necessary. Think of the mother who lifts a car to save her child, the athlete who trains through pain for a gold medal, the immigrant who sacrifices everything to build a better life. These are not logical moves. They are not calculated decisions based on spreadsheets or safety. They are fueled by emotion, desire so deep that the mind no longer negotiates. The question is never, "Can I?" but "How fast can I?" That level of desire dissolves excuses. It overpowers fatigue. It blinds the mind to obstacles and locks in on outcomes. That is what makes desire dangerous to doubt. It gives the soul no exit route. It doesn't accept delay. It demands expression. Let me give you an example. Picture a young man growing up in a home filled with silence, neglect, and poverty. No encouragement, no praise, just survival. He discovers music one day, by accident. He doesn't just like it, he feels it. It gives him life. He begins practicing in secret late at night, his fingers bleeding on old guitar strings. He's not thinking about fame or money. He's chasing a feeling, a release, a purpose, a way to matter. That emotion drives him. Not the applause, not the end result, the desire to create, to express, to escape the numbness of his environment becomes his reason for breathing. That desire becomes so intense that rejection doesn't stop him, failure doesn't stop him, homelessness doesn't stop him, because the fire inside is stronger than the world outside, and eventually the world catches up. The world sees the light that he refused to dim. This is what burning desire looks like. It is not fragile. It is not easily shaken. It survives storms because it is born of emotion, not ego. It does not wait for permission. It does not need perfect timing. It does not care if anyone else believes, as long as you believe. And the more that emotion is attached to the outcome, the more personal, the more vivid, the more meaningful, the harder it becomes for fear to hold you back. Fear thrives in emotional neutrality, but burning desire is emotional fire, and fire consumes fear before fear can take root. When your dream is soaked in emotion, it's no longer just a goal, it's a mission. It's no longer optional, it's necessary. That emotional necessity turns soft wishes into hard convictions. It transforms hesitation into urgency. And when desire reaches that level of intensity, action becomes automatic. You don't have to push yourself. You are pulled by something bigger than you, something that moves you forward, even when logic says stop, even when others don't understand, even when you have no proof yet, because burning desire doesn't care about proof. It creates it. Absolutely. Here's the expanded version of sauce: definiteness of purpose. Written in a commanding and emotionally resonant tone, with vivid example and without a closing sentence. Notre, definiteness of purpose expanded. A wandering mind produces a wandering life. The world is filled with people of talent, people of intelligence, people with charm and ambition, yet most of them will drift year after year, achieving a fraction of what they could, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked definiteness of purpose. A clear and specific goal acts like a magnet, a compass, a north star. It focuses the mind, filters distraction, and energizes the will. Without it, energy scatters. Time is wasted. Resources are diluted. Life becomes reactive instead of intentional. A man without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. It may be grand, it may be fast, but it will be carried by the wind and waves of circumstance, never arriving anywhere by its own command. Definiteness of purpose means knowing exactly what you want, not vaguely, not abstractly, but with sharp clarity. It means you don't just say, I want to be successful. You define what success looks like, sounds like, feels like. You build it in your imagination until it becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. That vision becomes a blueprint. And once you have a blueprint, the mind begins to organize your thoughts, decisions, and actions around it. You stop asking, what should I do today? And start asking, what brings me closer to the goal? Every decision becomes a filter. Every day becomes a brick. There is no more drifting, only building. Imagine a young woman who decides that her purpose is to become a world-class architect. She doesn't simply dream about it. She defines it. She sees the city skyline shaped by her work. She feels the pride of creating lasting beauty. She knows the type of buildings she wants to design, the kind of legacy she wants to leave. From that point forward, her decisions become sharper. She turns down parties when others celebrate. She takes jobs not for the paycheck, but for the mentorship. She studies design while others scroll. People call her obsessive, but what they don't understand is that she is aiming. She is not wasting her life trying everything. She is mastering one thing. And years later, when her buildings stand tall and her name is known, it will not be because she was lucky. It will be because she had a definite purpose, and she let that purpose shape her path. Most people live their entire lives dabbling in everything and committing to nothing. They change goals with the seasons, chasing whatever is trendy, whatever gets quick praise, whatever comes with less resistance. But purpose requires commitment. It requires stubborn clarity. It demands that you say no to good things in order to stay loyal to the right thing. That kind of loyalty to a single mission scares people. It feels like sacrifice, but in truth it's liberation, because when you know what you're aiming for, you no longer waste time questioning your every move. You stop seeking approval. You stop comparing. You stop wandering. You move forward deliberately, relentlessly, like a force of nature. Definiteness of purpose also attracts power. People can feel it. There is a different energy in someone who knows exactly where they are going. They speak with conviction. They carry themselves differently. Their time has weight. Their words have direction. And because of that, they attract support, resources, and opportunities that others miss. Life begins to organize itself around a person who is organized within. The world opens doors to those who walk toward them with clear intent. But the ones who hesitate, who wander, who chase 10 things at once, they find those doors remain closed, not because they lacked potential, but because they lacked focus. Having a definite purpose is not a one-time decision. It is a daily discipline. It is waking up each morning and reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. It is refusing to be seduced by distractions dressed up as opportunities. It is holding the vision even when there's no applause, no progress, and no one around you understands. Because purpose is not a product of outer conditions. It's a command you give to yourself. It is the act of deciding that your life will mean something specific, that your time will be directed towards something significant, and that you will not stop until that meaning becomes real. Certainly, here's the expanded version of you. Action transforms emotion. With rich emotional depth and illustrative example, delivered in a motivating and focused tone without any concluding sentence. Nandi, action transforms emotion. Expanded. Emotion is powerful, but emotion without action becomes a prison. Left unmanaged, emotion can drown ambition, distort reality, and turn simple problems into impossible barriers. But the moment you act, even in the smallest way, you begin to shift the emotional current. Action transforms emotion because it takes energy that would otherwise spiral inward and turns it outward, giving it motion, direction, and momentum. Anxiety becomes courage the moment you take a step toward what you fear. Sadness begins to lift the moment you do something, anything, that changes your environment. Overthinking quiets down the moment your body gets busy. You cannot think your way out of emotional paralysis. You must move your way through it.